So, my name is Leslie Zena, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to the Spring 2024 Local Reading Series at the Hudson Valley Writer Center. We are happy to have you here with us this afternoon. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. We hope you come again to one of our readings, classes, or events, both in person and online. Please check out our website for the complete list of offerings. We hope some of you will return for our next local reading on Monday, April 8th at 6 p.m. for a reading and conversation with local poets. I want to thank the board, our teachers, and our students who are the beating heart of the center, and the founder, Margot Taft-Seaver. We also want to recognize the foundations and organizations who support us, including the Bidell Foundation, the David G. Taft Foundation, NISCA, and Arts Westchester. I also want to thank my colleagues, Jennifer Franklin, Missy Yarnell, Sophia Bannister, and Christina Papadopoulos, for all their hard work. So, our first reader for today is Diane Munger Hechler, is president of D Tours Travel, a boutique travel company specializing in international vacations and cruises. Ms. Hechler is the author of Strolling with Your Elephant, Perfect Moments in Travel, an award-winning consumer guide book to unusual and authentic experiences around the world. For everyone who dreams of amazing travels to unusual and authentic places around the world. And it describes almost 80 unique experiences, ranging from the fun to unusual to thrilling adventures available for everyone. She has spoken at the Stamford Public Library, the Larchmont Public Library, Iona College, and at various Rotary Clubs in Westchester County. Ms. Hechler holds a M.A.L.D. from the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University and a B.A. from Middlebury College. Please help me welcome Diana Hechler.
Thank you, Leslie. I appreciate that. So I have a certain amount of time and I want to keep in it. So I'm going to look at my watch here. And before I read, I'm going to read a couple of excerpts from the book. I just wanted to spend a few minutes talking about how the book came to be written. Over the course of my travel business career, which began in 1999, I have acquired information about and sometimes participated in some really unusual travel experiences. And as my business grew, it has gotten even more interesting. And the more questions I ask about what can you tell me that I don't know about, whether I'm in Italy or Thailand or Australia, or New Zealand or Peru, the answers get better and better. So I had begun to acquire all these experiences. And again, this book is not a memoir of my fabulous travel life. It is a guidebook, a consumer guidebook for people who want something to, jazz up their vacation. And it's at all price points, from very expensive to free and everything in between. So I had acquired these experiences and I thought I could write, and I wanted to write this book. And I wanted to write this book for probably about 5 years. And I couldn't get to it because I was too busy running my travel business. And then something happened, and I would never want to make light of what was a tragedy for our nation and the world. But I could title this book What I Did on My COVID Summer Vacation, because, in February of 2020, I probably, like many of you, thought, oh, this will be over by the summer, and then March came and countries were shutting down, and I had no business. And I was sort of thinking, like, how long will this last? And in May, it became clear it was going to last a long time. And so one day in May of that year, I looked in the mirror and I said, if not now, when? You've been given this gift of time. And so I started writing. And I originally thought I would call the book something like 100 Great Experiences Around the World, kind of modeled on this book called 1,000 Places to See Before You Die, very successful travel book. And so I had begun writing, and I wrote and I wrote. I wrote all the way through 2020 and all the way through 2021, and got to about December of 21, and things began to percolate a little bit, not much, but a little bit. And I suddenly realized that I was really stuck on the last 15 adventures. I'd gotten up to 85. And I started to work again, and I was sort of thinking about those 15, and I got to finish the book. I got to get to 100. And I went on a cruise, and I was sitting next to a woman one night at dinner. She said she was an author. And I said, really? Oh, that's, I'm finishing up a book. She goes, well, how far have you gotten? I said, well, I want to write 100, but I've only written 85, and the last 15 are the hardest, and I can't get to it because now my business is really busy. And she said, well, what's so great about the number 100? Why don't you pick a different number, like 85? And I went, Yes, brilliant. Change the title. We're not doing 100 adventures anymore. So the book is Strolling with Your Elephant. And as I said, it is a guidebook for people based on things that I've either done myself or I know about. And I wanted the tone to be bright and breezy, and the chapters are bite-sized. So I like to think that they're perfect to leaf through while the pasta water is boiling. So without further ado, I will start, and I'm going to start with the adventure that gives the book its name, Strolling with Your Elephant. So I'm going to put this aside. Okay, Strolling with Your Elephant, which is in Chiang Rai, Thailand. In a remote corner of Southeast Asia, the countries of Thailand, Laos, and Myanmar come together to form the fabled Golden Triangle. Here, a special concerned citizen has created an elephant refuge where you, the enlightened traveler, can interact respectively with these magnificent creatures. The refuge at the Anantara Golden Triangle Elephant Camp and Resort is not a breeding station, a zoo, a research facility, or an elephant ride tourist attraction. There are plenty of those of varying quality throughout Asia, and we must all be careful to avoid facilities that exploit elephants or treat them cruelly. Happily, the Elephant Camp and Resort is a place where an elephant owner handler, a mahout, is invited to come with his elephant to live. He is offered a job and a place to stay for as long as he wants. He does not sell his elephant, and he and his elephant can leave at any time. However, ideally, he and his elephant change the nature of their lives together by moving here. His elephant can leave behind the horrible circus or the streets of Bangkok, where my elephant had been, or the construction brigade to spend the rest of her life on a grassy plain with appropriate food and care. There's no more work for the elephant, just a life of leisure and recuperation from her previous struggles. 3 times a day, the elephants go for a walk in the forest for exercise. You, the lucky guest at the adjacent hotel, can join them. But importantly, the exercise takes place routinely, whether there are any guests participating or not. At the day camp, you will meet the mahouts and find out about their lives and their work with elephants. Next, you and the elephants will have a chance to get to know each other. You can touch them and get a sense of their gentleness. You can speak to them and look them in their soulful eyes. You can pat them and muzzle their ears. You might find that one wraps her trunk around you in your personal encounter. After your getting to know you time, you'll set off for your relaxing stroll together down to the river, with her mahout walking alongside her. Along the way, she'll graze on leafy greens and perhaps scratch her back on some convenient bark. The gentle and rhythmic swaying of the walk might even lull you to sleep as you glide along together. Did you know that a Chai expression says that a woman's walk should reflect the grace of an elephant's gait? Elephants like water, and you will make a stop where you'll see some elephant-sized hoses. Grab one and get ready to play as you douse your giant friend. It's not clear who gets more pleasure out of the watering, you or the elephant. Off you go for the final push to the river. When you get there, she's going in. She might duck her head under the water. She might blow water through her trunk, spraying everyone in sight. Repeatedly. Elephants seem to like doing that. When she's had enough water, she'll walk up the embankment and you will make your way back to the base. When it's time to part, you just might want to hug your huge companion and tell her how much you love her gentle magnificence. I have various kinds of experiences in this book. This next one takes place in Vienna, Austria, called the Viennese Ball. Cue the orchestra. Throw on your ball gown, tuxedo, or business suit. Summon up your inner Cinderella and prepare for a special evening. The Viennese know how to waltz. They do it really well, and they do it a lot. In fact, they've been dancing the night away since 1815, over 200 years and counting. Every year, the major ball season occurs between New Year's Eve and Ash Wednesday, when this former imperial capital hosts about 400 events. Many of them are sponsored by professions such as lawyers, confectioners, pharmacists, doctors, and coffeehouse owners. The list goes on. The locations vary, but you might find yourself twirling away inside the imperial palace, the Hofburg. The coffee house owners boast that their ball is the only one that can use all of the Hofburg ballrooms, including the refurbished Redutensaal and the elegant roof foyer with its view over nighttime Vienna. My favorite is the Fête Impériale, which occurs in June and is the only ball scheduled for the summer. The Fête Impériale serves as a benefit to safeguard the future of the famous white stallions of the Spanish riding school, the Lipizzaner. You too can join the cream of Viennese society at the stunning Spanish riding school performance hall in the Hofburg on that one special night. The arena is an elegant space with boxes for spectators and chandeliers above a sand floor. But on this night, it transforms into a fairyland with a black and white dance floor, a full orchestra, and dining tables. A myriad of multicolored spotlights play over the floor and the walls, while a luscious soundtrack of classic waltz music fills your ears. Because the horses themselves have gone on to their annual summer vacation to Pilsen in the Czech countryside, the courtyard around which their stalls are arranged provides a second dance area, this one with a rock band. Whether you want to waltz or do the twist, you'll find your tribe, and of course you can wander back and forth between the two areas. While you do so, look for a small plaque on the wall, noting the role that General George S. Patton played in the closing days of World War II to safeguard the Lipizzaners. It's a small but interesting tale about a cavalryman general who made sure the White Stallions survived as the war ended. Perhaps you're concerned that your waltz skills need some brushing up. No problem. The Elmeyer Dance School in downtown Vienna will happily give you a 1-hour lesson in advance. Even a novice can learn enough to venture out on the dance floor. What about hair and makeup? No problem. My favorite hotel will arrange for an in-room session to suit your needs. Perhaps you'd like to arrive in style if you're going to spend an evening at the palace. Hire a horse-drawn carriage to transport you from your hotel. As you clip-clop over the cobblestones to the palace entrance in your finery, the magic will take over. The ball host may greet you outside the palace door in a receiving line when the entrance begins at 7:30. Photographers will capture the A-listers while you wait. Traditions continue inside, and it's best to find a seat in the spectator boxes for the formal program. You'll hear some speeches from the ball organizers, followed by a special introductory performance. Finally, the entrance of debutantes and their escorts will occur, and the young people will fill the floor for a first dance in a swirl of black and white tuxedos and ball gowns. Afterwards, with the words Alles Walzer, everything is waltz, the floor will open to everyone, probably around 9 p.m. A formal quadrille occurs at midnight, and the last waltz is usually around 4 a.m. It's a late night. The dance floor is a vast space, of course, since it's designed for horses to perform in. When you sally forth onto that beautiful floor, with the glorious waltz music swelling around you, the multicolored lights playing over the crowd, and with happy people dancing and twirling on every side, your inner Cinderella, Prince Charming, will emerge, guaranteed. Since the champagne flows freely all night, the whirling and twirling may internalize at a certain point, all to your benefit. Happily, the tickets to these balls are not exorbitantly expensive, about 100 euros per person, and students can buy a ticket for half price. The extras, of course, can add up, but for a once-in-a-lifetime experience, you might just want to do it upright. I have to tell you that when I did this experience, the idea that I, as a mere peasant, was going to spend the evening in the palace, not behind the roped off walls, the ropes and, don't step and don't touch this, but I was actually invited to the palace, was just kind of a really remarkable idea in my head. And the fact that the palace is used and opened to people who want to attend a ball is really quite wonderful. So it's very much a living place, and that was really quite an event, I have to say. But again, available to everyone. Available to everyone. All you have to do is really get yourself to Vienna. This is the Hofburg, the main imperial palace where the Habsburgs lived. Yeah, so you'll see the pictures of it. And again, you go to see the Lipizzaner stalls, when you're in Vienna, and there are the horses, and this is where your party is that night. They're not there, so they give it over to people. Yeah, it is really amazing. The next thing I want to read is something called Sydney Harbour Bridge Climb, which is Sydney, Australia. And I like this episode because it's a really good example of something that you might not understand unless someone explains it to you. So for someone who's heard that you can climb the Sydney Harbour Bridge, that may seem very off-putting and daunting. And I will tell you that the first time I went to Sydney, I saw these little dots up on this bridge and I thought, what kind of a nut wants to do that? Like, why would you ever want to do that? And then I found myself doing it and I was fine. Okay, Sydney Harbour Bridge Climb. Sydney Harbour boasts several world famous icons, most notably the sail-like structure of the Sydney Opera House. The Opera House sits flush with the beautiful waters of Sydney Harbour, described as the most perfect harbor in the world. With a metropolitan population of almost 5 million people living on both sides of the harbor, Sydney needs bridges. And in 1932, the Sydney Harbour Bridge came into service, carrying cars, rail, bike, and pedestrian traffic. The steel-through construction uses a central arch that is the biggest in the world, soaring 440 feet into the sky. And you can climb it. Perhaps you think, that must be scary, or I could never do that. I have a fear of heights, so that's not for me. That must be incredibly dangerous. Or only daredevils would want to do that. In fact, it's not that scary. You can do it. It's not dangerous. About 4 million people have climbed it since 1998, most of whom were not daredevils. Note, if you have a crippling fear of heights, it would not be appropriate. However, if your fear of heights is in the normal range, like mine, you will most likely be absolutely fine. As a bridge climber, you will meet next to the bridge to receive a briefing, take a breathalyzer test, and that is a serious thing, and change into climbing gear supplied by the Bridge Climb Company. In the briefing room, you will test climb 2 short ladders. If you can climb them without difficulty and you pass the breathalyzer test, you will be accepted for the climb. In the locker room, you must park your personal items in a locker. No phones, no earrings, no watch. Nothing that can come loose can go with you. Bridge climb will make sure that you cannot be a danger to yourself or to others while you are on the bridge. Now, you'll don a jumpsuit, complete with an attached pullover in case you get cold, a hanky for your personal needs, and most importantly, a safety harness with pull rings. Finally, you'll pop on a set of headphones so that you can hear your group leader over the noise of the wind. Once you understand the safety system, you'll understand why 4 million people have done this safely over the years. When you begin the bridge climb, the safety harness pull ring will attach to a cable that runs inside a track that begins at the base of the arch, kind of waist high. The cable track continues up the side of the arch, across the top of the span, and back down the other side. In order, everyone in your group will attach to that cable. Once the cable connects into the steel track, it cannot disengage until you come back down the other side of the arch. So, first, you traverse the trestle catwalks that connect the steel superstructure to land. The catwalks sit above the roadway, and if you want to look down, you will see 8 lanes of cars zipping the locals from one side of the harbor to the other. Occasionally, trains will rumble through with a lot of noise that vanishes as quickly as it comes. On the other side of the catwalk, you'll find a few short ladders. Up you climb to the beginning of the arch. The arch walkway sits well away from the very edge of the bridge. That's why it's not as scary as it sounds. It does slope upward, but there are bracing boards all along for more secure footing. Your trusty group guide will stop every now and then to explain unbelievable facts about the bridge, to let you rest, and to take in the increasingly astonishing views. Shortly, you will find yourself standing in the sky, overlooking one of the most beautiful cities in the world. There's that iconic opera house. There's the city center. There's the Taronga Zoo on the far side of the harbor. What a view. What an experience. When the guide asks you if you would like to make a short video at the top, say yes. It will be waiting for you when you're back down on the ground in the shop. I guarantee you that your video will capture you in an exhilarated frame of mind. It's a wonderful memento. And now with your group, you will cross over the top of the arch and begin the descent. Again, the bracing boards provide additional stability as you come back down to earth. Eventually, you'll come to a matching pair of those short ladders, climb down, Cross those catwalks to solid land again, and you're done. I think I have time for, yeah, I have one more. I have time for one more. Okay, I'm actually gonna choose which one I want here. Yeah, let's do this one. Well, this is a good one. This is a good example of something that's free. The Regatta Storica. You will know what that means with your Italian. Italy doesn't need to build Disney World. It already has one. It's called Venice. Although numerous cities try to claim the mantle of Venice of the North, Venice of the South, Venice of the East, let's face it, there's only one Venice. There's only one city where 120 separate islands connect through streets made of water, and iconic black gondolas ply those waters, moving people and tourists about. Now, most of us know that the city's highlights include the magnificent Piazza San Marco, the Doge's Palace with the Bridge of Sighs, the 3 bridges spanning the Grand Canal, and the beautiful Byzantine-style Basilica San Marco. In truth, part of the city's charm is simply being there and strolling the backwaters and tiny streets and crossing those endless little bridges. Everyone can find their own private Venice. This remarkable city has always gloried in spectacle and parties. You've probably heard that Carnevale di Venezia sets the standard for Mardi Gras celebrations every winter. But wait, there's more. Once a year, the local citizens dust off their Renaissance heritage to present the past in living color. And what a glorious past it was. And of course, boats underpinned everything. Venice dominated the Adriatic coastlines for several hundred years during the Renaissance, and the city grew rich and fat on its shipping prowess. The doges, the local rulers or dukes, enjoyed their luxuries while badly oppressing the citizens. They built the beautiful Doge's Palace and the gorgeous Piazza San Marco, while their friends enjoyed their own beautiful palazzos along the Grand Canal. When the Doges needed to leave that palace and visit their friends, they traveled in style on princely gondolas. Of course, the Doge's era ended a long time ago, but Venice has not forgotten the old days. On the first Sunday in September, the city sponsors the Regatta Storica, historic regatta. As you can guess from the name regatta, this one-day festival involves boats. All day long, racing crews test their spirit, mettle, and strength on the Grand Canal. To kick off the day of fun and sport, the Venetians dig out the ceremonial boats of the past and sail them down the Grand Canal. Perch yourself on a convenient post along the Grand Canal to watch the parade of historic gondolas and ceremonial boats. Modest vessels with crews of 4 rollers will float by. You'll see more impressive, bigger boats with 6-man crews. Finally, you'll goggle at the boats of the Doges with 8 or even 12-man crews. Remember, the Doges acted as the local kings. Their princely vessels needed to impress the local populace, and they surely did. Elaborate gilded carvings decorate the Doge's boats on the prow, the stern, and the sides. Polished and gleaming, the curved carvings contrast against the black lacquer wood of the stately vessels. Most of the crews sport matching Renaissance costumes of rich reds, greens, blues, and golds, even while they haul away on those oars. Even today, you, the humble spectator, can't help but be impressed at all that glory sailing by. The races last for hours, and depending on your enthusiasm, you might want to spend your day watching them. However, a little racing goes a long way, so feel free to resume your happy wandering in this very special city on a very special day. While Venice has lost its glory as a Renaissance shipping power, the Regatta Storica brings it all back for one shining moment. So again, if you're in Venice on the first Sunday in September, free. And it's incredible. So I will stop there. I think I'm out of time, but I hope you enjoyed that. And I guess we'll have questions and answers at the end. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Diana. So many inspiring voyages to take place now. So our next reader is Lucia. Cherciu is the author of 6 books of poetry, including Immigrant Prodigal Daughter, Train Ride to Bucharest, which received the Eugene Paul Nasser Poetry Prize, and Edible Flowers. Her work appeared in Poetry, Antico Review, and many other Romanian literary magazines. Cherciu is professor of English at SUNY Dutchess Community College and served as his 2021 to 2022 Dutchess County New York Poet Laureate. Please help me welcome Lucia.
Good evening, everybody. It's such a delight to be here. It's the first time for me coming here at this reading venue, although I have been following many of their events. So it's a delight to meet the other speakers, and thank you for coming out to show your support. I'm going to start by reading some poems from my new book, Immigrant Prodigal Daughter. And the cover is a photograph that my uncle, Vasile Diaconu, took. He passed away of COVID in Romania in March 3 years ago. And I think he would love to know, he loves to know that his flowers and his pictures are traveling with me wherever I go. So I'm going to start with the second poem in the book. Tango pe Boulevard delle Metropole. Dansez cu râsul tău. Orașul îți deschide brațele plin de lumină, librării din belșug, ciocolată voluptoasă, bulevarde tentante, galerii de artă luxuriinde secrete. Tot ce ai atins a înflorit, tot ce ți-ai dorit s-a împlinit, iar tot ce era albastru și violet s-a făcut lalea, tocuri cui, ciorap plasă și acuarele, furtișag și stăruință, sunetul pașilor tăi pe marmura pieței, osmoză, încăpățânare, persistență, înverșunarea alungă insomnia și îndoiala. Tot ce ai pictat a creat un tango de aluzie. Ai hipnotizat luna, m-ai înșelat pe mine cu mine. Okay. So normally I don't translate my poems from one language to another, but of course I write the poems in English first, and I translate a couple of them into Romanian just for fun. So that's one of the games that I play sometimes. So now here's the same poem in English. Tango on the boulevards in the city. I dance with your laughter. The city opens its arms, lights on, bookstores galore, chocolate voluptuous. Boulevards tempting, galleries lush with secrets. Everything you have touched has blossomed. Everything you have wished for has arrived. Everything purple and blue has tuliped. Stilettos and turquoise, fishnet stockings and watercolors, stealthiness and persistence, the sound of your steps on the marble of the plaza, osmosis, single-mindedness, willfulness, obstinacy dredges up insomnia and doubt. Everything you have painted has brought about a tango of innuendo. You have hypnotized the moon. You have cheated on me with me. The next poem is called The Apple Trees from Home. I didn't know I already had everything. Abundance and fear. Abundance of fear. I defied darkness. I had my health. I prayed to remember. I prayed to forget. I followed the light, sought the light in others. Tried to name the 4 kinds of pears grafted on my grandparents' pear tree. Dreamed all night I was picking summer apples, cherries, plums from all our fruit trees I left behind. Why did you leave? Asks my mother. Don't worry, time will pass and soon you'll come home again, my father used to say. I didn't tell them I wanted to stay. I should have called more often. I followed the routine, feigned a routine. I fasted. I ate my restlessness. I pined for a white porch that evaded me. I longed for 100 kinds of grapes. I listened to the lingering litany of birds I couldn't name, and I laughed. How many of you are writers? Can you raise your hand? Very good. How many of you speak or have tried to learn another language? Very good. How many of you are in love with grammar the way I do, the way I am? This poem is called Grammar is a Map. And if you're wondering how are these talks related today, well, traveling and languages have grammar in common. So this poem is called Grammar is a Map. Grammar is a map. The words I know in another language are like benches in the shade where a friend waits for me in every town and holds my hand. My tour guide for an ancient city, each sentence has wisdom to impart. Stand tall. Send money to your sister. Write a note with 7 reasons you respect your brother. Grammar is a map. What a miracle to be here. What a heavenly gift to breathe in this thought with these words that I was not born into. How I miss the milk of my mother's songs. Delicate or rustic, the words in my native tongue remind me of a gate, a porch, and a threshold. O poartă, un pridvor și un prag. Grammar is a bride of promises, a lattice of veils. Grammar is a groom of confidence, imparts strengths and secrets, teaches with tenderness. To speak in another language is to be courageous and humble, to ask for forgiveness with each syllable, each gesture. Please forgive my offenses. Forget my mistakes, because I have learned every word in another language with prayer and sweat. I have walked the country of your grammar, listened and repeated, and have yet to learn to let go of my trespasses. All the words in other languages I have grasped have taught me the sweetness of silence. If I had kept quiet, I'd still be a philosopher. Dacă tăceai, filozof rămâneai. Okay, so spring is coming. At this point, the gardening stores are ordering their fruit trees. And if you go to check them now, you can get the ones you really want. If you wait for later, you can get them on sale, but the best ones have been picked over. Or if you're truly a dreamer like I am, I'm teaching you here, as the title of this poem says, how to grow a peach tree out of a pit. Peaches and apricots are the only trees you can grow from the pit and expect them to stay true. Saving the pits from our favorite peaches, I keep them in the fridge for a month so they think it's winter. And then I plant them in pots and in the yard, carefully marking the spot. Before you know, the whole garden will become a peach orchard. Enough fruit for deer, squirrels, birds, and slugs. Wry comments will fall to the wayside, and so will the unrelenting grief of avoidance. Before you know it, neighbors will find peach trees in their own yards. Squirrels and birds who dig up the pits will carry them to the meadows. The whole town will relish the view of the small trees, delicate tendrils. The narrower the streets in the city, the more likely the peach trees will survive, because deer won't venture. Before you know it, fears will dissipate, and people will learn to love fruit trees in their yards again. So ferocious is my devotion to fruit trees that I could carry tiny trees on my back on Main Street and plant them by the front windows. Winter will tighten down on its resolve. During lean years, children will peer outside with woeful eyes, only to discover a blossoming tree blossoming. So my poor husband, I think, is afraid because when spring comes, we go to Adams, the store in our town, and we get a new tree. We're going to get a Rainier cherry tree this spring. If you want to plant some fruit trees, I would say go with cherries because those are the most expensive at the grocery store. I would say the safest one is to plant a Montmorency because it's self-pollinating. But if you are a fool like I am, do 2 cherry trees that are different. They both have to be sweet cherries to cross-pollinate. So I'd say get a Bing cherry tree and a Rainier tree. Okay, and the bees will love you. Immigrant verbs. I came to America when I was 22. I came for graduate school. I went to University of Colorado at Colorado Springs first, and then I got my PhD in Pennsylvania. And when I came, I told my mom that I'm going to stay for a year. And then every year she'd ask me, when are you coming home? And I'd say, oh, I'm coming home this summer. And she'd say, you think you're smart, aren't you? And when I was young, I thought I was smart. But now I realize they were right all along, that your mother is right all along. Immigrant verbs. Okay. Has it ever happened to you that a friend ghosted you? Where they never wrote back to you and that was it? No, nothing. If you don't know about that, well, let's say I don't know about it either. Okay. Immigrant verbs. If your beloved friends from your youth forgot about you, don't worry. After all, living in another part of the world steals you from friends like living with no summer. Make new friends like chicory, obdurate, light blue. It grows on the side of the road, meeting the eye of summer, the gold of secrets, dispelling the fears of travelers and souls forlorn. If old friends gave you up, pay the water bill for someone in need. Petitionary prayer, making a new friend means you dig a well or pay for someone's heating bill in a long winter. Do not bemoan the loss of old friends. They held your hand as a guide. Their time with you, the first flutter of daffodils. Friends are like summer, sweet or somber. Brew some rosemary tea to keep alive the memory, to remember the salt of sauntering through an old town where you know all the streets, all the benches, best bakeries. Disgruntled or persnickety, suave or serene, friends who don't write back are like an adjective. You thought it was always married to a noun, only to find out that summer slips into sleepy shades, teaches the tenderness of new grammar, sleek syllables, sly maps. Scarce temptations. During communism, we were not allowed to try clothes on before buying them. We went to a store and the assistant looked with disdain, almost refused to give us the dress, barely let us touch the silk. If we bought it, we could never return it. Buying something was as final as an arranged marriage. We took the dress home and prayed for the best. We only bought one outfit per year. And when we got home, we learned to take it in or let the seams out. My mother would fret till she found new shoes and then wouldn't step close to a shop. Even when we wanted to buy, there wasn't much. Halls echoed, mirrors turned green. Today, shelves are stacked, but my mother has given up, says we'd have to chase her to go to a store. I'm going to finish up with a poem from my book titled Train Ride to Bucharest. All right. So I should also give you some homework. I'm a teacher, so I love giving homework. So I already tried to convince you to do something about fruit trees to help the bees, right? So consider buying a fruit tree. Start with a cherry tree. Or plant a pit for a peach tree. Even if you don't have your own house, put it in a pot and then put it on the deck, put it on in front of your house. Try it. There's nothing like the flowers of a peach tree. They're a kind of pink that's very rare. Or just go to a store that sells fruit trees, and then you'll understand why I'm so wildly in love with them. So that's homework number one. Homework number two, you have to promise me that from now on, you do not sit in the same spot for more than 15 minutes. Can you do something for me? Can you get up now? And loosen up. Do this like in Qigong. Today I went to my local library and I did Qigong. Check to see if your local library has Qigong. And listen, my name is Lucia. Remember, don't sit for more than 15 minutes. And I'll tell you some other time why and how I learned about it, but you got to trust me. Okay, very good. And thank you. Thank you for humoring me. And now here's my last poem. Wanderlust. I eat all day because I'm fasting. I laugh all night because I'm crying. I wait for you because it's summer and only winter warms my bones. I walk barefoot because I'm rich. I burn my shoes because I'm poor. I yell at you because I love you. I smile because you broke my heart. I give advice because I'm naked. I listen because you don't say much. I wash you because you're clean. I miss you because you're here. I pray because my father left. I preach because I don't want to hear. I feast because you are so stingy. I starve because you are austere. I run because I belong home. I stay because of wanderlust. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Lucia. It's very beautiful. So our final reader for tonight is Allison Gilbert, who is the co-author of Listen World, the first biography of American writer Elise Robinson, a newspaper columnist who came from nothing and became the most read woman in the country and highest paid woman writer in the Hearst media empire. The New York Times raves, "One does not tire of spending time with Elise Robinson," and the Wall Street Journal claims the book an important contribution to women's history. Allison is co-editor of Covering Catastrophe, broadcasting journalist reporting September 11th, and author of Always Too Soon, Voices of Support for Those Who Have Lost Both Parents. parentless parents, how the loss of our mothers and fathers impact the way we raise our children, and past and present, keeping memories of loved ones alive. An Emmy Award-winning journalist, Allison helps writers best position their stories for publication through her literary consultancy, Pub Day. Please help me welcome Allison Gilbert.
Thank you guys so much for being here. I am so grateful. I was really moved by one of your specific poems about letting go of old friendships. And I wasn't going to mention this tonight, but my 6th book is going to be coming out in October, and it's about loneliness. And we're in the middle of an epidemic in this country. The US Surgeon General has proclaimed it so last year. We are losing our facility of introducing ourselves, of talking to each other. We're looking at our phones too much and not engaging with stories and ideas and nurturing those old friendships that you wrote so beautifully about in that poem. And so, like you invited us to do to shake, I'm going to give up one of my minutes of my talk tonight about Listen World, my biography, to take advantage of what the Hudson Valley Writers Center does so well, which is right in our own neighborhood. Bring us together in person, not to devalue you guys online. I know you're there, but come here next time. So for 1 minute, I invite you to turn to the person next to you or across the room, introduce yourself, tell them where you are from nearby. We're all somewhere nearby here. And I will give 1 minute of my talk to just investing in our own relationships. So, and if you are home watching and you have 1 minute to spare, go get some water. Now's the time. So for 1 minute, please introduce yourself to someone who you don't know in this room, and we'll pick this up in 60 seconds. Hi, so it's nice to meet you too. Thank you. How did you hear about tonight? Oh, you did? Okay. Okay, that's so nice.
And then I will call you.
Oh my goodness, Hudson is my new consultancy. We're helping so many writers. It's like my dream come true. I really, really love it. I'm excited to learn more about your memoir. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, everybody. Thank you guys so much. This is what I think the Hudson Valley Writers Center is partly for. I know we are here to discuss writers and readers, literature and memoir and poetry, and in my case tonight, biography. So I am very honored to talk with you about Listen World, a passion project. You probably never thought a biography could be a passion project, but I will reveal to you why in my few minutes tonight. But Elsie Robinson, in a nutshell, so I can explain her to you, she was born in the late 1800s in 1883. And by 1920, she started kicking ass and taking names and numbers. She had 0 contacts, 0 nepotism to help her way. And through her sheer grit and moxie, determination, her ability to kind of bulldoze through obstacle after obstacle, she became one of the most prolific and famous writers in the entire country. She was a Hearst syndicated newspaper columnist. Her column was called Listen World. That was her name for her column. because she had things to say. We're here on March 1st, and it's not by accident. We are here on March 1st because we are celebrating, in my view, 3 amazing writers who are all women. And now I get to talk about another amazing woman who struggled. Writing is hard. Like I said, I've written 5. My 6th one is coming out in October, and I still find it hard. There is not a day that goes by when I'm writing, and my new book is due in May, that I don't think it's hard. So we are here to learn about the process of writing too. And my great encouragement to anyone here and those who are listening is that I don't believe I've ever met a writer friend who thinks this is a walk in the park, that they wake up in the morning and the prose just come out through their fingers into their keyboard or longhand onto the legal pad without effort. I wouldn't want you to believe that writing is frictionless. I don't believe we birth books in perfect form. There are many iterations that you will never see. Pages that are deleted, trashed permanently from the computer screen, lest anyone go into my files and ever see them again. They're not only in trash, they're deleted from the trash can, just in case. But this biography of L.C. Robinson was hard for another reason altogether. There was never a biography written about her before, and so the roadmap was unclear. And because the roadmap was unclear, there was no prototype to maybe get ideas from. My co-author, Julia Shears, and I decided to invent, or I should say, reinvent the form. That'll become clear to you as I read some tonight. Biographies tend to lean very heavily on what we call the authorial voice, the omnipresent author who knows it all. And that's important because that builds trust with the reader. But we were profiling another woman writer, and she had her own words that she's already written that we could then use to inform our biography of her. And so we did something we don't think any other biographer or biographers have ever done. We feel that L.C. Robinson was our 3rd co-author. She started writing for William Randolph Hearst in 1924, and she kept going on a near daily column until 1956. That is more than 30 years of articles that we can lean into to get her perspective on virtually any topic. Racism, capital punishment, gender inequality, pay inequity, anti-Semitism. Views about marriage, relationships, sex, children, marriage, motherhood. How could we drown out her voice in our biography as 2 women writers? Women's voices, as we know, have already been stifled. So we wanted to lean heavily into what she had to say about herself and about her world in which she lived. A background about that before I dig in is that we have created the first ever database of L.C. Robinson's own words, tracking her columns, creating keywords and tags based on all the topics that I've already described to you. And also keying for those columns that also included her editorial and political cartoons. The reason why Elsie Robinson was Hearst's highest paid female writer is because she was a double threat. Not only did she write incredibly well, and you will hear that soon, she also drew her own illustrations, her own accompanying artwork for her pieces. That is still today highly unusual. Usually writers write, and then the copy gets sent over to the art department. Elsie Robinson was a unicorn because she did both. This book has been out for a bit. So if you don't want a spoiler, leave the room or leave the TV or your phone right now if you're watching this online. Because I'm going to talk about one of the more tragic parts of Elsie Robinson's story that she endured in her journey of being an incredible success. She had one son, and he was sick her entire life and died young. He had asthma, but when he was born in 1904, asthma that we would see perhaps as something to be taken less seriously because of inhalers and steroids and things that may not bring a mother to panic, was a condition that ravaged her emotionally, mentally, and financially to get him the medication that he needed. So I'm going to read you just a little bit about that and his death. In 1926, his illness was frequently a death sentence. Penicillin, the first widely used antibiotic that could have treated George's bacterial infection, wouldn't be discovered until 2 years later. This was exacerbated by his asthma. I should include that part. The hours ticked by at the hospital as Elsie Robinson watched George fight for air, his frail chest straining under the rough hospital sheets. Saturday, January 23rd, broke clear and mild in San Francisco. Along Market Street, the big news story, hawked by newsboys up and down the sidewalks, was that prohibition agents had busted up an illegal gin mill near Union Square. But at St. Luke's Hospital, a distraught Elsie hovered over her dying son as he drifted in and out of consciousness. His dreadful rasping filled the room. His lips and fingertips turned blue as cyanosis set in. And his skin felt so cold, no matter how many blankets she bundled around him. And at around noon, George Alexander Crowell, after 21 years, 1 month and 18 days of life, took his last ragged breath and slipped away. He had been hospitalized for 19 days. And here's how Elsie Robinson reflected on that time. Details? What do they matter now? There are no details when the thing you have loved best goes on. Only a wailing, witless darkness. Grief, we expect that. Heartbreaking sorrow, flesh-rendering pain, loneliness beyond all measure of imagining. But we never anticipate that most poignant of agonies which death inflicts upon the bereaved, the sense of utter bankruptcy. What we decided to do throughout the entire book is braid our authorial voice with Elsie Robinson's voice. So the story all along is pushed forward by us, Elsie. However, we could bring in Elsie's voice from her poetry, from her columns, from her fiction, which of course we would identify as such, through her memoir that she wrote in 1934. We did. This is just going to be an example of that. We're towards the end of the book, we're in the epilogue, and we're describing Elsie Robinson's enduring importance. One subject, however, would continue dominating Elsie's work: the status of women. Both in her journalism and in her fiction, she repeatedly examined the place of women in marriage, in the workplace, and in the world. Ray Long, head of the Hearst Magazine division and editor-in-chief of Cosmo from 1918 to 1931, credited Elsie Robinson with writing the kinds of short stories for his magazine that discuss life from angles that may shock other women, but stories that every woman will know to be true, though some will refuse to admit it. At a time when most Americans believed women possessed a maternal instinct, Elsie disagreed. She would say, "We are beginning to realize that it is as absurd to trust mother instinct in caring for children as it would be to trust aviator instinct in flying a powerful plane." She also took on the sacred cow of motherhood itself. No mother can do her full duty to her children who does not do full duty to herself. And neither, she would say, would romantic love be the key ever to joy completely in a woman's life. Love is not woman's whole existence unless she's a fool. She urged women to find gratification outside the home as their husbands did by participating in public life and holding careers. I could go on. I love her words so much. And I just want to give you a few more of my favorites. And then I'm going to share with you something that I think will be illuminating and that I never do at readings, but because we are so close to where I live and because the Hudson Valley Writers Center is so important to me, and I'm so thankful to be here again. So thank you so much for having me back. I wanted to share something with you when I'm done reading these next few quotes. I thought it might be fun just to hear more of Elsie Robinson's voice that we really have excavated. On gender equality. I'm tired of hearing the differences of men and women emphasized and exploited. It has built a wicked wall between the sexes, and it is time we knocked it down. That was written a decade before Gloria Steinem was born. On happiness. Happiness must be planned for, fought for, achieved. Meaning happiness takes work. On writing, this is the last one I'll share because look where we are. Why not give a quote about writing? It is the parked profile, not the divine spark, which is the secret to success. Do you want me to read that one again? It is the parked profile, meaning sit down and get to work. It is a parked profile and not the divine spark, which is the secret of success. That, my friends, is about stamina and endurance and getting over the hump when writing is hard. Now, the last thing I will share in my remaining time is something that I don't normally bring with me to readings because it is so fragile. And on my book tour, when I was promoting Listen World the most, not even then would I bring it with me. But like I said, Hudson Valley Writer Center is very special to me and right near my home. So many people ask me, well, how did you find out about Elsie Robinson? Well, after my mother died, shortly after I graduated college, my job was to go through her books on this one particular day when my brother and I went back to our childhood home, not too far away in Riverdale. And I was having a really tough time. I was 25 and I thought I was way too young to have lost my mom. So going through her books was taking me a very long time. I wanted to see what she annotated. I wanted to see if she wrote me a note. I wanted to see if she left me a letter hidden in the pages. Well, lo and behold, something did fall out of one of my mother's books. And it's this old piece of onion skin paper. And on this onion skin piece of paper that is now ripped and stained, there is a poem. It is a poem that's called Pain, P-A-I-N. And it is the most tough love poem about grief I think you will ever read. And basically the point, the essence of this poem to me was stop crying and just feel lucky that you had a mother worth missing. And this poem is attributed to someone named Elsie Robinson. And at the time, I had no idea who Elsie Robinson was. And that set me on the journey to figure out who she was and what about her writing spoke so much to my mother that she had chosen to retype it. So thank you very much. It's in the back of the book. and my time is done. And my time is done. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sensitive to everyone's stuff.
Thank you so much, Allison. That was very beautiful reading. So what we usually like to do at our end of our reading is have the readers come back up over here and see if the audience has any questions. I sure do have questions to ask. So if you could, please come up here. There's a seat here, and maybe someone can sit here. All right, I'm gonna take out the microphone.
So I know you teach. What is it that you teach?
I teach English at Dutchess Community College in Poughkeepsie. So I teach introduction to literature, composition, women's literature, creative writing, poetry.
I'm still really in touch. And I asked, what about this meant so much to her? Because her parents had not died by then. And I wonder what you would say. You know, I think poetry is so powerful because every reader takes away what they need. And Elsie Robinson wrote that poem as her son who died. That was her reason for writing. My reason for writing is that I lost my mom. But here's the interesting thing. That pain was about the romantic loss. My mom had broken up with a college boyfriend, and she thought that was the worst pain imaginable. And here's the funny thing about losing this kind of tender romantic love. I had pictures of her college boyfriend. And I tracked down her college boyfriend to find out more. And he's now in his 90s. And so I tracked him down and I spoke to him on the phone. And I said, tell me more about this love affair that you and my mom had. And I got these pictures and yes, it was so awful. It was a really painful breakup. But I told your mother it would never work. It's long term. I said, why? Because she's not. So it's star-crossed lovers and it never happened. I said, okay, that's totally Charlie. That's totally fine, Charlie. I respect that. By the way, you're 90, you live in peace. Do you want me to bring down these great pictures of you and my mom together in college? She's, oh no, my wife didn't like that. Yeah. That's more than you needed to know, but that was a really funny research story. His 90-year-old wife wouldn't like that.
I have a question because I write and I also teach creative writing and Christian composition. And I'm just wondering how many of you use outlines, because writing is hard, but if you have an outline, I'm sure you didn't sit down and write that book from beginning to end without some sort of map. So how many of you use outlines?
I was taught to use an outline very early in my life and I've never let it go. I don't think you can do anything without it. You just have to know where you're going. You gotta see the whole vision before you can go down and do each little thing. I've tried to instill that in my sons. I don't know if I succeeded or not, but it's being organized, right? I mean, you have to be organized.
But what do you do if you don't know if you don't have the map?
No, I mean, the book that I'm writing, I don't have the map.
So, everybody says, write an outline, right? And I'm like, okay, but, beginning, middle, end. It's not, I still have a lot of research.
But it might help to have them.
It might,
It might help to
It
speed
might
your process.
yeah.
There's something very interesting. Do you remember the writer Barbara Ehrenreich?
Yes.
Very famous writer. My memory is faulty and I can't remember where she said this, but you can probably Google it. It was the best quote ever, that whenever she gets stuck, it just means she hasn't done enough research. And I take that to heart. That could even be about your own life and excavating where you want your story to go, or who do you want to be the characters in your memoir. That's a form of research. And I also feel like there's some matter of creativity and grace, that an outline is great. And when you write nonfiction, like a biography, you have to submit a book proposal for it to sell. And so if you want to be published by a mainstream publisher, which is what my journey has been, to only be published by mainstream publishers. My next book is Penguin Random House in October. You have to submit a nonfiction book proposal, which just means that there is an outline. However, that doesn't mean that your feet are in cement. That just means this is where you think it's going to be. And you have the opportunity and the freedom to change and pivot and go where the story goes or go where the facts lead you. So I think it's a guide, but I wouldn't let that make you fearful of not knowing every single step along the way. Because you'll figure that out once you get writing.
Sure.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
that's a good question.
Sorry to ask so many questions, but for Listen World, I'm picturing it as a miniseries because there's a lot of history in there. I mean, I'm still shocked that we got the book so late. But anyway, I'm thinking, has your agent taken somewhere to make a miniseries? Because doesn't need to be a book, it needs to be a miniseries to do it for justice.
Well, if you have connections to Amazon or Netflix or, I'm open to those conversations from your mouth. I would love that. Are you kidding? That would be tremendous. Yeah.
I wonder if to piggyback on his question earlier about outlines, and sort of when I'm thinking about writing, and I have struggled with the organization. I used to do filmmaking. I have done filmmaking and documentary filmmaking. Is this, you keep exploring, you have to do that sort of research, and then these gems start to pop up. And I'm wondering if that sort of, I'm equating this maybe, or writing this biography process
possibly in that vein at all, where this exploratory, then it starts to emerge some pieces.
Yeah, I think that's the part of patience that it's unlike a recipe in a cookbook. Like if you follow a recipe in a cookbook, I mean, I can't do this, but I guess in theory, people can follow a recipe in a cookbook and you're pretty much guaranteed that result. In my view, and you guys might have very different opinions, but in my view, part of the fun is that you're figuring it out as you go. And if you can allow yourself to have wiggle room, as opposed to feeling confined and constrained by an outline and rigid, I think the end product will be better because the facts will take you to a certain place, or an interview that you do will take you to a certain place. And interviews are important for memoir. So it's not just for nonfiction writing. And I don't want to monopolize the time, but I'll just give you a quick, even today. So I'm writing this book that's coming out in October. And even today I'm writing a section and I thought it was going to go this way. And as I'm writing, because it's hard, I said it was hard, right? Writing is hard. And so as I'm writing, I'm like, that is so not working. I'm going to have to go this way. And you know what? What I ended up getting, I mean, we're talking like 200 words here all day. Like sometimes it's really hard. But where I ended up at the end is much more where I needed to be than when I began. And if your only win at the end of the day is a new direction in 200 words, and everything else is in the trash, in the delete, and then you delete the trash can, like I said, I think that's a win. Because your day was actually incredibly valuable to the end product.
Follow up on that, I meant to also ask, so when we submitted at the beginning the book proposal, how in this book, how much difference did it end up being from the original concept to book?
That's a really good question. I have to go back to the proposal. I think there was so much we didn't know, but I think the bones were there. We knew the story-ish. We may not have known all the wonderful, sexy, hard details. We certainly didn't have all of her columns to refer to. We only had a few at that point because that was a lot of work. And that was going to be waiting for us once we got paid to do the work. So I would say it got deeper, richer, better. And perhaps we ended up not including things, but found other things that we thought were better to include. That's part of having grace with your outline. But generally speaking, the publisher paid for a biography about this incredible, remarkable, trailblazing, badass woman. And they got an incredible story about a trailblazing, badass woman. So in that sense, I think we did it. Yeah.
So thank you. I have a question for you with your 85 excursions. Are there any places you went that you didn't, or experiences that you had that you didn't include in the 85?
Yeah, I've written a really great little piece about hidden corners of St. Petersburg, Russia, and I didn't put that.
And why not?
Because of the political situation. It would be sort of like saying in 1942, Berlin's just a great place to go. I can't advocate anybody going to that country right now, and it's just the wrong time. So the tone of your book is really important. I mean that was something that I've worked and struggled with a lot, was making that cohesive, so that there weren't like sort of things that popped out that were written in one style and then something else like this. That would just have really been a wrong note. I also when I did the strolling with my elephant thing, recognized that I didn't want PETA to come back down on my head for, something that seemed like it was exploitative of elephants. I was very careful with that chapter. And even with that, I got somebody on my author page writing some really horrible, nasty thing that showed she obviously had read the book.
Mm.
But she said, well, elephants hate water. I'm like, "No, they love water. It's like, "Just elephants don't like to swim." I'm like, I think they do. So, you know, you want to be sensitive to make sure that you're, as I said, not picking a fight that you don't have to pick, you know, like, just leave that out. And so I would love to have another version of my book in the future, and I'd love the situation to be better, that I could put that in. Those are cool things to do, and that's a beautiful city, and I'm very sorry that Russia is in the place it is right.
So do you think, just follow-on question, do you think in a couple of years you have the extra 15 to get to 100?
Probably has those already.
Yeah, I do, you know, and it's a question of, somebody asked me a similar question at one of my other readings, and what I said was that as I said, that the more I ask questions of the right people, the better the answers are. And so I was at this conference about 2 years ago, and I was meeting with somebody who has a tour company in Paris. I mean, Paris is a city that many of us have been to, right? And there's no shortage of things that you want to see, Notre Dame, or really basic stuff. But I said to them, okay, I've got a grandmother who's taking her 8-year-old granddaughter to Paris this spring. Like, I'd like to do something different. What can you think about? And he said, well, boy or girl, we could have them meet Gustav Eiffel on top of the Eiffel Tower and have a session about what the Eiffel Tower is and how it stays up and how it all works. I thought, well, I'm not an 8-year-old girl. That sounds cool. And somebody else who I was saying, this guy's a World War II buff in London. What can we do? And he said, well, we have a Spitfire, the planes that the RAF flew in the war. Yeah, it flies, and you can have a pilot take you up. And I'm like, one passenger, right? Yeah. Mike stays on the ground and takes a picture. My husband goes up in the plane, which hopefully lands against. But the more questions you ask, the better it gets. That same guy, somebody else in London said, no, it wasn't that same guy. Said, you go to the war rooms in London, and that's pretty interesting. Yeah, I'm sure someone does. Well, during the day, there's a big plexiglass wall that separates you from the office. But, after hours, we go in and we take the plexiglass down. You can sit in the chair beside it if you want to.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
That's very cool.
So the more, no, you have, the subtitle of my book is You Don't Even Know to Ask Me. And so that's my question when I meet with my tour company partners from around the world is, tell me something I don't know. Oh, you have a cooking class. I'm like, no, I'm way beyond the cooking class. Tell me something I really don't know. And that's when the answers get really good.
Wow.
I have a question for the poet. Actually, two things. You talked a lot about buying fruit trees. What about no-mow May? You know about no-mow May? Okay, basically, they say people should mow during May because there are a lot of bees and other insects that are still having their young come out. And that seems like that might be, my opinion, more important than buying a fruit tree, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, you don't love your mind.
You don't know you wait until June. So all these insects have a chance to come up.
Well, also so that because there's a lot of things that bloom.
Right.
The dandelions blooming, the violets blooming, so the little bees have something to eat.
But it depends on where you live, because if you do that, the property values of your neighbors' houses will have houses for sale might go down.
Yeah,
And also, for instance, I planted the vegetable and flower garden, but after we put that fence up around the garden, we realized our neighbor right next to us was heavy pesticides. So I think it would be really important for people to look into what exactly you're spraying on, because it's terrifying to think of what's
People
in
can actually connect up communities to come to an agreement. Wouldn't that be a little neighborhood?
And it's sort of sad that one neighbor has bees. And right next, there's somebody who sprays heavily. And so I think it's so strange how the lawn one out. Why is there this fascination with the law? And why we despise dandelions so much? There's a lot of research that shows that dandelions are actually very good for us. We can use the herbs for tea and many other things, and they're the first greens that you can eat. But I wonder, with this whole movement where people are struggling with tummy problems, more and more kids have more and more allergies from birth. How much of that is connected with what we're putting on our lawn and what's on our food, this new way of growing food and whatever happens to the seeds. So it's very complicated. It also means that we have to be responsible and accountable, and that we're accountable to the next generation. And we should teach, I think one of the reasons to garden is to teach little kids, because maybe we learned it from our parents, maybe we grew up with it. But little children now are struggling with this whole addiction to screens. So anything that can keep the kids away outside to play on safe lawns, to play, would be helpful, and anything that we can do to save the bees.
Another question.
Can I just interrupt for 1 second? Because I know we're out of time, and I want to make sure that Mother's Day is coming and everyone has books here for sale. And I want to make sure that everyone knows that the books are on that table, and we have time for refreshments and things to drink and books to buy and sign. And we can keep talking during refreshments, but I want to make sure that we also honor people's time. I see people checking their watches. But books are over there, and we're so grateful to have been here. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Say,